Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the West Virginia Archives and History Library Tuesday night lecture series. We have an exciting program tonight. We've got also some exciting programs coming up in the near future. We have on March 13th, which is a Thursday, Victory Loan Tour of 1945 with Dr. James Spencer. And on March 20th, we have A Woman's Touch, 18th century Eastern Woodland Indian women as architects of social conscience and gender balance. And Diane Anestis will be presenting that one. And the next Tuesday night lecture series will be April 1st by Jim Casto, and it'll be about Collis P. Huntington. Tonight's lecture we're very excited about. Rick Wolfe will present From the Burning of Chambersburg to the Battle of Moorefield. Rick is a native of Morgantown and spent 26 years in the Marine Corps, retiring as a major in 1988. He is a longtime student of the American Civil War, especially as it relates to West Virginia. He is associated with the Clarksburg and Morgantown Civil War Roundtables and is president of the Rich Mountain Battlefield Foundation. In June of 2009, Wolfe was appointed by Governor Manchin to the West Virginia Sesquicentennial of the American Civil War Commission. He is the author of a book in the Images of America series titled West Virginia in the Civil War. I'd like for you all to join me in making welcome Rick Wolfe.
Thanks. 1864. This is when the war changed. Everything, it's been 3 long years. Grant takes command, and he is going to change the war. Now, you'll hear some historians say that the actions in Western Virginia and West Virginia in 1864 were not the main actions. That if they could accomplish something, that was fine. Well, I think a lot of these actions were very strategic. They're going after the Virginia and Tennessee Railroad. They're going after the Shenandoah Valley, the breadbasket of the Confederacy. So these were important actions, and they were also to defeat the Confederate armies in the valley, was so that Lee could not move troops back and forth between the valley and Richmond and Petersburg area. Okay, we'll look at what came before Chambersburg. We had action down in southern part of Virginia at Cloyd's Mountain. A victory for General Crook, and this is where General Jenkins is killed, and General McCausland will be put in command. Also Cove Mountain, where General Avril was repulsed by Morgan and some of the Confederates there. At this battle, General Avril will be wounded. Then we have Newmarket. 1864, Franz Sigel was put in command of the Department of West Virginia. He was Major General, plus he was German, and Lincoln won the German vote. He will move up the valley and get defeated at Newmarket, and then retreat and is relieved, and General Hunter is put in command. General Crook moves into Piedmont, fights Jones at Piedmont. General Jones is killed. That's a Union victory. Hunter goes into Lexington, burns Lexington. moves to Lynchburg, is defeated by Early at Lynchburg, and then he will retreat back through West Virginia to Kanawha Valley, get on steamboats, go up the river to Parkersburg, across the B&O Railroad, and they're back in the valley. And this happens very quickly. It does not happen in time for the Battle of Monocacy, which scares Lincoln. This is Early going after Washington, and at Monocacy, he is turned back, and he comes back to the valley. Then we have Battle of Snicker's Ferry. Colonel Thoburn is beaten pretty good here by Early's troops. Sorry, Carter's Farm. We have Carter's Farm, combined cavalry and infantry battle that Averell wins. And then what we're going to talk about tonight, Chambersburg, Cumberland, and Moorefield. Who started the burning? Well, if you're a Confederate, you're going to say that Hunter started the burning. Let's look at it. When did the burning of private property start? With the Jones raid in Fairmont in April 1863. Governor of the restored government of Virginia, Governor Francis Pierpont, his library was burned. And next year, whenever Union forces entered Lexington to repay the Confederates for Pierpont's library being burned, they burned Letcher's house. So this is in the valley when Hunter came through in Lexington. When Early attacked Monocacy, he burned the governor of Maryland's house, which was south of Baltimore. And he also burned Postmaster General's house, Montgomery Blair's. Hunter, after he was defeated at Lynchburg, came back into the valley, and in the lower part of the valley around Martinsburg, Shepherdstown, and Charlestown, 3 houses of Confederate sympathizers he had burned. Now this is where you get a lot of the report of the outrage. These 3 right here. Andrew Hunter, his cousin, but he was a Confederate sympathizer, had his house burned. Now, burning of these 3 houses is what Early uses to send McCausland to Chambersburg. Okay, let's talk a little bit about who we're going to see tonight. General John McCausland, Tiger John. Isn't that a great photograph? Look at that. That's outstanding. That's here at the archives. He is in command of this division. Kind of a small division, 2 brigades. He is a graduate of VMI. He was born in Missouri. He is orphaned by about age 5 or 6 and moves to Mason County, West Virginia to live with relatives. He grows up there, graduate of VMI, and he was an instructor at VMI. He was present at the hanging of John Brown. Bradley Johnson, Princeton grad, lawyer in Baltimore, born in Frederick, Maryland. And Major Harry Gilmore, partisan ranger, cavalry officer, pretty flamboyant guy. He was born in Baltimore, and so he also has 2 regiments of this brigade. Now, okay, here's what we've got. Mostly Virginia and a couple Maryland cavalry regiments here. and 6 pieces of artillery. We've got about 2,800 to 3,000 cavalry, which they're in good shape as far as the horses are. Some of these men are carrying single-shot Winchester or single-shot Enfields, so they're really mounted infantry. But some of them are equipped for infantry or for cavalry. On the Union side, Commander William W. Avril, West Point graduate, 1855. He served in mounted rifles out west. He was wounded in 58, and he does not recover from his wound until the Civil War starts. Was relieved at Chancellorsville by Hooker. I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. Is sent to Western Virginia, and he takes 3 infantry regiments, mounts those infantry regiments, makes cavalry out of them. Very capable cavalry officer. He has some problems sometimes. Leading one of the brigades, Major Thomas Gibson of the 14th Pennsylvania Cavalry. And the other brigade is led by William H. Powell. Powell was an engineer in ironworks. He was born in Wales, moved to the United States when he was 4 or 5. Lived along the Ohio River, Wheeling area. Very capable individual. By this time, he has already been wounded, captured as a POW, threatened to be executed, leads a raid on Sinking Creek, which he'll be awarded the Medal of Honor for. And Averil's men it's a lot smaller regiment or division here. In fact, you can hardly classify this as division with 700, 1,900 men. These are cavalry. They are equipped with carbines, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. 1st has been together for quite a while. 2nd's been together since the start of the war. 3rd had been broken up on outpost duty. So in '64, their companies are brought together. 8th Ohio is short of men. They are about half that regiment is in Beverly, and the 14th Pennsylvania, less than half that regiment is split out, and they're guarding crossings and fords along the Potomac and railroad stations. 4 guns with 5th U.S. Light Artillery. Now, I just want to show this because it's West Virginia regiment or regiments here with Powell. Capehart leads the 1st. John J. Hoffman leads the 2nd, and Lowry McGee leads the 3rd. Very capable officers here. Okay, the order. This order came from Early. He sent McCausland to Chambersburg to demand $100,000 in gold or $500,000 greenbacks. If they do not get that, to burn the town. After Chambersburg, they're to move to Cumberland, demand the same ransom, but they're also to destroy any railroad equipment, bridges, trestles, coal mines, move on to New Creek, destroy any railroad equipment there, military supplies. move on to Paw Paw. There's a 3,000-foot tunnel for the C&O Chesapeake and Ohio Canal. 3,000-foot tunnel. They want to destroy it. McCausland is to cross at McCoy's Ford. He is to move out. Gilmore is to take the lead to clear the ford, push back any Union resistance, which he fights with the 14th Pennsylvania Cavalry, a couple companies of it. He will lose precious time and a few men. McCausland starts crossing on the 29th of July, 1864. At that same time, Early pushes forward towards Hagerstown, Maryland. This is a distraction to pull the troops away from McCausland, right here, so he can go on to Chambersburg. Early moves his forces, causes distraction. He also sends some of his cavalry out. And just beyond Hancock, Hagerstown, Maryland, you have General Avril and his division of West Virginia troops and with Pennsylvania and Ohio. This is going to be the route that McCausland is going to take. Now, it took him a long time to cross that the Potomac River. His men were stretched out 2 or 3 miles long. Took him 5 hours to cross the Potomac right there. He's moving into Pennsylvania. Now this is, he's also going to meet resistance. A Lieutenant Hancock McLean with 20 or 30 troops, some convalescent, some regular cavalry, move out of Carlisle, and they are skirmishing with McCausland's group all the way to Chambersburg. These are not green troops. They've been in battle. And for such a small group of cavalry, they put up a good fight. As they get closer to Chambersburg, they'll be reinforced by 20 more cavalry and a 12-pound cannon. Now, since McCausland taken 5 or 6 hours to cross the ford on Potomac there, it's getting late in the day, So you have a running night battle going on with Lieutenant McLean. And then on the morning of the 30th, McCausland sees that these are just a few cavalry. But then stand by now because he thought he had more in front of him. So he commences to overlap their flanks and put the heat on. Remember Averell. Averell was over around Hagerstown. He is concerned with the cavalry in his front. Vaughn's cavalry out of Early's Confederates is pushing him. So he's watching that as he's moving out. Averell also has, he's been marching for 1,400 miles, has not received a remount. Many of his horses do not have shoes. Plus they've been through quite a few battles. Cove Mountain, which was a nasty fight, Carter's Farm. He'd retreated across West Virginia. He was pretty wore out. So he moves and he stays far enough away from Early's cavalry here to keep from getting surrounded, and he's still concerned about McCausland. Now, in Chambersburg is Darius Couch, Major General, Commander, Department of Susquehanna. He knows what's going on here. He's in constant contact with Lieutenant McLean. He knows that McCausland is going to move on Chambersburg. He's telling Averell, hey, McCausland's moving on Chambersburg. In fact, 4 p.m. on the 29th of July, he sends a message to Averell and his brigade commanders that McCausland will be in Chambersburg. Now, Averell's 10 miles away. He doesn't go after McCausland. He's still concerned about the cavalry pushing him down here from the south and his wagon trains. Averell lays down that evening to go to sleep, and no one can find him. And the Union forces just sit there and allow McCausland to move into Chambersburg when they're 10 miles away. Colonel William Powell said in a letter after the war, Averell was drunk. Back at Potomac River, at the same time that McCausland is crossing, Hans McNeill's Rangers out of Moorefield, they attack various railroad sites along the Potomac River, just kind of causing confusion so that the Union forces aren't sure where they're being attacked and who's attacking. He blows up some culverts, sets some trestles on fire, and just kind of causes trouble like every partisan ranger does. He will join up with McCausland later on. Okay. McCausland is 2 miles from Chambersburg. He pushes away McLean's small force. He gets close to Chambersburg, unlimbers his artillery, and fires a couple shots over the town to let them know, I'm here. Early that morning, goes into town. About 6 o'clock, he goes into town. 5 o'clock that morning, McLean and his men had retreated out of Chambersburg, and they went to Harrisburg. Also, Darius Couch, that morning, about 3 o'clock in the morning, he sends his last messengers out to Averell, and he heads out of town. Also, other people head out of town, like the bankers and prominent people, taking with them money. McCausland rides into town, pretty much unmolested. Him and his brigade commanders go to breakfast at the Franklin Hotel and demand to see the prominent people of the town. He says, here's what I want, or I'm going to burn the town. He was not taken very seriously. Now, during this time in the morning, his men have come into town. They're straggling in, and they are breaking into stores, robbing people on the streets, just being a nuisance. McCausland keeps insisting, look, get your bankers here, here's what we want. If not, we're going to burn this town. Finally, he's had it. It's getting later on in the day. He knows he's got to get out of there. He knows that there's Union forces after him. And he gives an order to Colonel William Peters, 21st Virginia Cavalry, to burn the town. Colonel Peters refuses. Says he'll resign. Refuses to burn the town. He was the only high-ranking officer that told McCausland this. Some of the junior troops, they didn't think they should burn the town. This was something they hadn't done before. They'd burned oil fields at burning springs. They'd blown up bridges. They'd burned trestles. The saltpeter works. Things like that were military objectives. This was not a military objective as far as they were concerned. Peters he stays with McCausland, but he won't burn the town. McCausland calls for Gilmore, tells Gilmore to fire the town, and as they start firing the town, more robbing and pillaging goes on. Now, our man Averell, sitting over about 10 miles away, does he know what's going on? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. He knows what is going on because he has some scouts out, Jesse Scouts, as they're called. This name comes from General Fremont, from his wife, Jessie Fremont. Why it stayed, I don't know, because really Averell and Sheridan used these men better than Fremont did. These are young men that can pass as Southerners, and they're dressed in Confederate uniforms. Archibald Rowan, 1st West Virginia Cav, is one of these men. He will receive the Medal of Honor for actions that he performed for General Grant later in the war. He writes after the war how he watched McCausland's men burn that town, how he had sent one of the scouts to tell Averell that he could get here and he could stop this. Averell didn't move his men until 8 o'clock on the 30th. 11 o'clock, McCausland's ready to move out. He is ready to leave Chambersburg. 559 structures destroyed. $1.3 million in damage. That's in 1864 dollars. No assistance from the federal government, then or later on. McCausland starts getting his men, get out of town, let's go, we're moving, we're going on to Cumberland. You had stragglers. One Major Bailey, he got away from the core part of town, southern part, and he was captured. A couple of men captured him and executed him. Begged for his life. No, you town burning SOB. That afternoon, Averell comes into Chambersburg. Forgot to mention, this is a hot summer, very hot summer. The day Chambersburg was burned on 30th of July, 1864. Is 88 degrees in Baltimore. This is as hot a summer and dry as it was wet in 1861. Anybody familiar with that? It's very wet in 1861. They could feel the heat off the houses as they were going into town. Averell was informed that McCausland only had a couple hours head start on him and he could go after him. But he held back, didn't go after him. McCausland moves out of Chambersburg, and he's moving very quickly, going through Fort Loudon. He had some more stragglers. And you had a former artillery sergeant that was from Chambersburg that was following behind the Confederates, hoping to pick up some stragglers. And he did at Fort Loudon. Whoops. Wrong button. Right here at Loudon. Same thing. He captures a Confederate soldier and who begs for his life, and he executes him. In Fort Loudon, one of the Confederate cavalrymen stops at a blacksmith to get his shoe put back on his horse. He's bragging to that blacksmith about the nice pair of earrings that he had picked up in Chambersburg. To the local men, take him out to the field and execute him. We have at least 3 instances that we can document of people from Chambersburg following behind or getting Confederates and executing them out in the field. McCausland gets into McConnellsburg, demands a ransom from them and rations. Demands rations for 2,600 men. Okay, so you have an idea here. We had about 3,000, but here's pretty good proof that it was less than 3,000 men. He wants rations for 2,600. Yeah, a couple hundred people in McConnellsburg. They couldn't do that. But they did feed the Confederates. Then they moved on to the Potomac River to Hancock. Hancock, we're in Maryland now. Remember, we had some Maryland troops with McCausland. He demands a ransom from Hancock. This was not part of his orders, where he's going to burn the town. Well, Gilmore and Johnson, both Marylanders, no, General, you're not. You are not going to burn this town. And they said, a lot of these citizens here have relatives in the Confederate Army. Now, if we go back to 1862, whenever Lander was in Hancock, he told Jackson to go ahead and shell it, that this was a damn secesh town, and he'd just be killing friends. So, kind of tells you that that was a Confederate town. McCausland relents. He does not burn the town. They will go provide some food rations for him, but he realizes that Averell's on his tail, so he decides he better cross. They destroy the railroad depot here across the river at Alpine Station, which is close to Berkeley Springs, Bath at that time. Bath's right there. Train station there called Alpine Station. Also, a story about McCausland coming out of a bookstore with his arms full of books in Hancock. Sure he paid for them. Now, out in Cumberland, we have our one of our heroes here, General Benjamin Franklin Kelly, who sends armored train out to Hancock to find out what is going on. They get out there, see the Confederates on the hill. They open fire with the artillery piece. Now this is just an engine pushing a car that is all metal. They fire at the Confederates. Confederates unlimber the artillery, fire back. First round goes in the firebox of the engine. The second round takes off the smokestack. These boys running the train decide, wait a minute, let's back up. So they backed up on the tracks there while some of the 153rd Ohio get out and skirmish with McCausland's boys. They decide it's better to retreat, and they move back to Cumberland. Okay, got McCausland. He's ready to get out of Hancock, and remember what his mission is. He's going on to Cumberland. And he moves out National Pike, Route 40, towards Cumberland. Okay. Benjamin Franklin Kelly, he knows that McCausland is coming towards Cumberland. He's got his son out with a cavalry company, scouting, cutting down trees all along the turnpike here to slow them down, getting very good reports. But he has very few people in Cumberland, very few soldiers. 153rd Ohio, the 11th West Virginia, 6th West Virginia. 6th is, they're railroad guards. I mean, that's all they've been doing for the war, guarding that railroad. He also has First Illinois Light Artillery. He goes to the townspeople. The townspeople put under arms 102 civilians. So he is not going to let McCausland come in and destroy Cumberland. Averell, remember Averell is right behind McCausland. He comes to Hancock, and he stops at Hancock. Now, General David Hunter, who's commanding department, you know, he's on the telegraph, and he's trying to figure out what is going on. When he finds out that McCausland, or Averell is chasing McCausland, he tells Dufay, well, I'm not sure if he knew what to do with cavalry, but anyway, he told Alfred Dufay, maybe you're not familiar with him, he was not a very good cavalry officer. He was captured, and the Union didn't want him exchanged. Anyway, General Hunter tells Alfred Dufay to take 500 of his men and send them to Averell. So he does. He takes 500 men, a couple hundred from the 22nd Pennsylvania Cavalry, formerly Ringgold Cavalry, and about 300 from 1st New York Cavalry. And they join Averell with Hancock. Now, Averell's in communication with Kelly. You would think, I would think, that if you got Kelly putting up a defense in Cumberland, that Averell would follow after and trap McCausland. Well, he tells Kelly that if he sends cars to Hancock, that he'll send his boys to Cumberland to help him defend it. I don't know what went on at that time, but I think if I was General Kelly, it's like, Okay, I've got enough stuff going on here. I cannot send cars to go get guys. I've got enough to worry about. I'm ready to get my town burned. Cumberland. Railroad town, big railroad. Supply depot. Coal mines, ironworks, all that you had around Cumberland area. This is the this railroad depot here, that's Barnum Hotel. That'll play a role in February of '65 when Crook and Kelly were captured by McNeil's Rangers. Kelly puts a good defense together, a good plan, plus he always has his cavalry out getting reports of where they are. Where is McCausland's boys? Picture General Kelly, rough looking guy. He's not going to let McCausland take his town. Okay, this is going to be known as the Battle of Falk's Mill. This is the Turnpike, Baltimore Turnpike here, Northwest Turnpike, and McCausland is moving out at. You can see this if you're on 68 going into Cumberland, where the hills kind of come together and you go over the hill into Cumberland. If you're familiar with that, that is where Kelly put his troops and his artillery on those hills where it pinches together, where the Confederates have got to come through that way. They can't go any other way. Sitting on the hill, McCausland doesn't know he's there. He gets out the road there on August 1st, 1864. And next thing you know, 1st Light Artillery Illinois Battery is firing on him. He fights, tries to envelop, can't do anything. Kelly's holding him off with his few men and artillery. He will retreat at 4 o'clock, decide, okay, let's give up on Cumberland. He'll move off the turnpike. During the fighting at Cumberland, he's sending Gilmore out to find him a way to get across the Potomac River. He doesn't know where Averell is. He knows he's behind it. He knows he's got a mean general in front of him that's not going to give him any slack, so he needs to get out of there. So he goes, he hits Old Town, tears up railroad trestles, attacks a couple blockhouses, finds a armored train, burns it, just kind of causing any kind of confusion and havoc as he's going along the way. That wasn't supposed to do it. Okay. Moves to Springfield. Springfield, he gets up with McNeil's Rangers. McNeil's Rangers tell him, go to New Creek. Small garrison. We blew up the culvert between Cumberland and New Creek. So there's no way that they can send reinforcements from Cumberland. So McCausland decides, okay, burn Chambersburg, good. Didn't get Cumberland, I'll get New Creek. Goes out to New Creek. There's only one problem there. Right after McNeil's Rangers destroy that culvert, they've got the guys out repairing that thing. So it's been repaired. So Kelly is sending troops down to help New Creek. Garrison at New Creek, small, They all move into Fort Fuller there. McCausland comes in. Oops. Go back. McCausland comes in and takes Fort Piano. Unoccupied fort, moves his troops into there, and they're firing on Fort Fuller. Piano's higher than Fuller. Fuller can't quite elevate the guns to hit Piano, but they're putting up a good fight there. McCausland is moving more men in, trying to flank them. Major Simpson of 11th West Virginia Infantry arrives at 4 o'clock on a train from Cumberland, gets his 11th Infantry and 6th Infantry, gets that battalion off the train, kind of like a movie. Jump right in, off the train, and light into McCausland's troops that are pressing Fort Fuller. Attacks them, pushes them back. McCausland regroups, tries to force forward again. Simpson attacks again, pushing McCausland back. Anytime McCausland would get in front of Fort Fuller, he was getting artillery, Fort Piano, he was getting artillery from Fort Fuller. So he decides, okay, this is a bad idea, let's leave. Oops. He'll move to Romney, and then move down to Moorefield. Johnson will camp here. McCausland closer to the town. McNeil's Rangers, that 100 men Parson Rangers, they're telling McCausland, this is a bad idea. That's open area where you're camping. You've got Averell back at Romney. He's going to hit you. McNeil's Rangers, they go up the Trough Road and they camp in an area that is protected. Averell's sitting at Romney up here, and he's deciding what to do. This is McNeil House, not Hans McNeil's house, Daniel McNeil. This is where Bradley Johnson will stay. He'll set his headquarters up here. His house is still here. And he'll camp in the area around this house. Gilmore will not stay in the house. Gilmore stays outside by a fence. This is McMechan House. Sorry, got the cars here. Didn't have enough photographs. General McCausland will stay in this. So this is in the town of Moorefield. And his men are camped between here and the river, a couple miles. Okay. So now things are going to get exciting. Remember what I said about the Jesse Scouts? Averell sent them forward. They are locating where McCausland has got his boys camped. He knows he's got a brigade here on one side of the river, brigade on the other side of the river. So he will move his men forward using these scouts to tell him where everyone is. At that same time, he gives Lieutenant Work of the 22nd Pennsylvania Cavalry, Ringo Cavalry, who used to operate in Romney, so that it was a homecoming for them to be in Romney. He sends him 31 miles. Now this is on the night of the 6th. 31 miles out here to try to stop McCausland from getting back to the valley. So he sends him over to Wardensville Lost River area. Right here to the Jesse Scouts. These were in the 5th West Virginia Cavalry, both of them from Grafton, Pruitttown, Webster area. John Wilhite and William Shirley. They will go out, not only find where McCausland is, goes out that night and captures all of his pickets. Every picket, every outpost, they have infiltrated them because they're wearing Confederate uniforms, and they sneak up on them, mix right in with them. Who are you? You're relief. Capture them without firing a shot. One of them came up on one group that was pretty much ready to go to sleep, which they were supposed to be on picket duty, and called him, "You Chambersburg burning SOB." And so what do we have? We've got Averell, just a few miles from Moorefield, with nothing between him and McCausland's army. Moves. First attack is going to be the 3rd and 1st West Virginia Cavalry. Their orders are to attack through Johnson's brigade, don't even touch them, and go after McCausland's brigade, which is across the river. That's the first attack. The rest of his division will strike Johnson. The 2nd West Virginia Cav will be placed in reserve in case they're needed. There's second attack with everyone else. First attack, 1st West Virginia, 3rd West Virginia. Now, one company of the 3rd West Virginia joins the 1st New York. I don't know if it's before the first attack or during the second attack. Okay, the first attack, they're pushed back, and then the second attack happens at the river. They're overlapping their flanks. The 3rd West Virginia and 1st New York, well, one company of 3rd West Virginia, 1st New York, is hitting the Confederates on the left flank. The 1st Cav and 3rd Cav, West Virginia Cav, is hitting them on the right flank. During this second attack from 3rd West Virginia Cav, 2 officers are killed. Major Seymour B. Conger and Lieutenant Leonard Clark. These are 2 brave individuals, very brave individuals. Oops. Second attack. Okay, after that second attack, Confederates are on the run. They try to put up some resistance, try to deliver their artillery, and then their third attack. This is river at Moorefield here. This is in the general area where the 3rd West Virginia Cav came across. Just talk about a third attack. Yes. Okay. Confederates are running all over the place. So early in the morning, very confusing. A lot of the Confederates are getting away just because of the confusion. General Bradley Johnson is captured. He's a brand new general. He was made general after Jones was killed at Piedmont. Nobody really recognized him, and he kind of sneaks away. Okay, Confederates killed, 36 wounded, 420 captured, 3 battle flags, headquarters flag, 4 pieces of artillery, 400 horses and equipment. Union had 9 killed, 32 wounded. Seymour B. Conger, very brave individual. He was leading, at least on that side, the 3rd West Virginia Cav. He was buried at Moorefield on the battlefield. He was reinterred, and he's buried at Arlington Cemetery. Leonard Clark, lieutenant, very brave man. He was a scout from McClellan early in the war. He was captured and had some rough treatment at POW camp in 1861. He was returned to his hometown of Shinston. He's buried in Shin Cemetery. As we see that his tombstone is not very well taken care of. It was hobbled off. Okay, the battle. What happened after the battle? General Kelly is promoted Brigadier General. Fort Fuller is renamed Fort Kelly. February 1865, he is captured by McNeil's Rangers along with General Crook, and pretty much the end of the war. He's exchanged very quickly. We had so many, the Union had so many generals, Confederate generals that time. William Avril, for his actions, he was also promoted Major General. He was relieved by Sheridan after the Battle of Fisher's Hill, September 1864, because he did not follow up the attack. Averell, it's back and forth on that. Was it his fault, or was it just that Sheridan wanted somebody else in command? John McCausland, Tiger John. When the surrender came in 1865, he left the country. There were warrants out for his arrest for burning Chambersburg. This went on for 2 years. Went to Mexico, went to Egypt, Turkey. 1868, President Grant said, that's it. That was an act of war, no more. He is not responsible for this. Now, General Early, in his memoir, said he was the one responsible for that. He gave the orders. Bradley Johnson, he was relieved of command in November. Was it because of this? Maybe, maybe not. Put in charge of POW camp for the rest of the war. Harry Gilmore, he was captured by McNeil's by Jesse Scouts in Moorefield in 1865. That mission was to capture him. The town of Chambersburg. They never received any money for the town being destroyed from the federal government. The center of town, known as the Diamond, they have a soldier monument there. Where do you think that soldier's facing? South. Thank you. A little long. Yes, sir.
You mentioned a VMI in relation to Chambersburg. You want to speak to that for a second?
When Hunter went into Lexington, besides torching Governor Letcher's house, he also burned VMI, which VMI, as far as I could see, would be a legitimate military target, just like oil or railroad, or, I mean, it's a military training ground. Franz Siegel had just been beaten a month before by 200 cadets from Newmarket, or from VMI at Newmarket. Yes, sir.
The Confederates have a general sense of revenge against the Yankees for burning areas in the valley, though, huh?
Yes.
They look on the farms and several barns and various areas that they don't consider, you know, military targets.
Those barns, those granaries, those mills were feeding Confederates.
And well, I'm just saying that the
Yeah, I know.
Confederates generally, generals.
After Chambersburg and Grant Lee kind of got together and said, hey, let's stop this private property type thing, except for the mills and that type. Yes, sir.
After McCausland came home, what happened?
Oh, he farmed in Mason County.
So
He stayed there. When he died, he was the second oldest Confederate general, I think. Isn't that right, Terry? Second.
This act of going into towns and holding them for ransom and threatening to burn, was that something that was done very often?
No, it was not. That's what 1860. You look at some of the things that happened in 1864. In fact, some of the way the soldiers thought, the way they fought, you would not have seen that in 1861. This has been 3 hard years. These were veterans. They wanted to get this over with. They were tired. Yeah, no, you didn't have that. Yes, sir.
My wife's grandmother supposedly cleaned house for General McCausland. She lived in Buffalo. They take a boat across the river and do some housework for
Terry had talked to me today about somebody that had worked for McCollum. Yeah, he was up 98. He was way up there when he died. And he was...
He died in 1927, according to the accounts I've seen.
He was almost the last Confederate general, I think.
They said, the book said the third oldest.
Third?
Third, that's the count I've seen.
Yes, sir.
I was going to mention one more fact about with the collapse of the Confederate dollar, they're looking for Yankee specie, Yankee dollars, and those would be much more valuable than the Confederate dollars by then. If they could get any cash, that cash would have more value.
Good point. That soldier that was stopped to get his horse shod in Fort Loudon, he had a bunch of greenbacks in his pocket whenever he was killed. The cavalry at Moorefield found quite a few greenbacks in the soldiers there that they took off of the prisoners and stuff. In fact, they talked about one boy from the 2nd West Virginia Cavalry sent a package home immediately for them.
Benjamin Walker. This has been interesting.
Hear that, Terry? 16th Virginia Cavalry ancestor.
They would have been with McCollum.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit about the aftermath of Chambersburg, as far as the rebuilding and all that.
Well, they rebuilt the town, of course, but they tried numerous times to get money from the state, from the federal government, and it was always refused. They asked for like $900,000 quite a few times. They also put warrants out for the arrest of McCausland for burning the town. In fact, Terry Lowry brought up a extradition paper that I guess the state of Pennsylvania had sent to West Virginia to extradite McCausland for the town burning, arson. Anything else? I do have books for sale if anyone's interested.
Can you speak a little bit about your book, would you?
Well, this is Images of America book. It's photographs. Many of them are from my collection on West Virginian Civil War. It starts with John Brown's raid, goes through each year of the war, and then it goes through the monuments and reunions. Yes, sir.
You mentioned in passing Beverly. What was the military significance of Beverly?
Beverly. You had the Stanton-Spartansburg Turnpike that ran through Beverly. You had the Beverly-Fairmont Turnpike. It was an outpost controlling the southern part of the state. A very mountainous area, and that was a big supply depot there and hospital. You ever been to Beverly?
Yes, sir.
Been to the Heritage Center?
I have not.
Need to come back to the Heritage Center. It's worth the trip.
Okay, thank you.
And Rich Mountain. In fact, contact me, give you a tour.
Rick,
Yes, sir.
little side story on Chambersburg you might like. Back in the 1980s, I was telling you earlier, when I talked to Dr. Alexander McCausland, he was the oldest McCausland grandson, the one who was known the general the best growing up. And he said, I think it was during the West Virginia Centennial, maybe 125th anniversary of the burning of Chambersburg. The town of Chambersburg invited him to come up and be a guest speaker. He told him, I'm not going up there, I'll get killed. But he said he decided to go anyway. They said they treated him like a king. So.
Yeah, I think that's when they redid the town hall, or the center of the town with the monument, and refurbished it. Was for the 125th.
That was probably it.
Yeah.
He said they treated him great.
Yes, sir.
Wasn't there another town, I don't know if it was McCausland was involved or not, but they threatened to burn it, and they paid them ransom to keep them from doing stuff.
Hagerstown.
And I'd heard it was like basically the people there had to pay it, and it was like in the 1920s, by the time they got the loan paid off.
Oh, really? I don't recall that, but yeah, Early demanded a ransom out of Hagerstown. They paid.
I'm not sure if, after the war, General McCausland, didn't he join both the Mexican army and then he served in the Egyptian army? Is that my imagination? That could be other.
I don't think he's in the Egyptian army or the Mexican. I never heard. He went to this country. He went to Mexico for a while.
I thought they tried to get him to join their.
A lot of the ex-Confederate generals they did.
Was it Wise? No.
Loring served down there.
Loring, that's who I was thinking. Yes, Loring served in the Egyptian
Maybe that's what I was thinking.
With Grant's recommendation.
2199. All right.
We thank you for a wonderful presentation, and on the behalf of the Archives and History Library, we would like to invite you all to visit with Richard Wolfe there and check out his new book.